Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 1 of the Product Breakfast Club podcast. This podcast is all about product design, product innovation, process, and productivity. So many words with the letter P in it. It's hosted by me, Jonathan Courtney, and Jake Knapp, New York Times best-selling author of Sprint. I mean, I've done nothing, so I can't really say anything. So it's just me here, Jonathan Courtney. And this is episode 1. It's a total experiment that we want to try out, basically recording the calls that myself and Jake have every 2 weeks anyway. And we thought maybe it's an interesting thing for you guys to listen into. So let us know what you think about it. If you're watching this on YouTube, just let us know in the comments. If you're listening to this on iTunes or on your podcast app, give us a review or drop over to YouTube. Search for AJ&Smart. You'll find the podcast. Guys, enjoy it. We've had a lot of fun doing it. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 1 of a podcast that we don't have a name for yet, but we have a couple of ideas. But probably by the time you're listening to this, you will have found it because you have the name for it. Otherwise, you just will randomly have gone on iTunes and typed in the word podcast. And
oh yeah, if you're listening to this now, you'll already know the name.
Yeah,
because you'll be. Oh, that's weird.
See, that's the thing. But I can tell, I mean, we can talk about what we were thinking of calling it, and we'll see if it ends up being one of these things. But the general idea of this podcast, I guess, is that myself and Jake here are going to talk about some topics that maybe you find interesting. And I guess if you're watching this on YouTube, you kind of already found it based on your interests, so we don't have to convince you. But if someone told you to watch this or listen to this and now you're doing it and you're like, why did I do this with my time?
Now they're really wondering.
Now they're like, what happened? What am I doing with my life? We can tell you. I mean, I think that what we think it's about now is us, myself and Jake, talking about product design, process, innovation, productivity. Jake is very self-centered, so...
I'm very self-centered. There'll be a lot of talking about me. There'll be a lot of me talking, telling stories about myself, things that I did, things that I wish I could have done, might do someday. We'll probably talk about other stuff, too. We'll probably talk about, like, books that I've read.
Oh, yeah.
You know, my opinion of them. We'll talk about, video games I've played.
Oh, my God. I've been playing so much of that new Mario game, by the way.
Whew. Yeah, well, all the games I played, we could talk about all of that. We'll talk about breakfast because I'm going to eat some breakfast in a minute. There's all kinds of topics, so many topics. And
Jake, I'm going to need, because it's for video, and the problem is you can't actually see what I can see on my end here. I'm going to need you to make sure that your head doesn't go outside of can you move slightly this way? This
this.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I need you to stay and not move. At all. For the audio listeners, this is going to be the worst intro of all time because we're not going to be really.
I think it might be the worst intro for anyone.
I've heard worse. but it's definitely up there. Great. So maybe would probably make sense for us to introduce ourselves. I think maybe you go first.
Yeah. My name is Jake Knapp, and which is actually just Jake Knapp. It's not Jake Knapp. And
My name is Jake Knapp.
And I'm mostly a full-time writer these days, but I have historically been a designer, and I worked at Microsoft and then Google for a long time, Google Ventures, and worked with a lot of startups and a lot of big companies, and that's me.
Damn it! I should have gone first. Because now I kind of have to follow that up. But you didn't actually say that you're a best-selling New York Times whatever writer or something like that, so it's actually okay. Hi, so I am actually a New York Times best-selling author. I wrote Sprint, and Jake just stuck his name on it. That's why we're doing this podcast, because he kind of promised to do it for that sort of
a little court settlement that we had.
Yeah, it was really, I can't believe that you stole that. But now we're good friends. No, I'm Jonathan. I run the design agency AJ&Smart here in Berlin. That's why it's dark here and it's bright. Oh God, I keep forgetting that a lot of people won't watch this video. It's going to be a lot of audio. I'm sitting here in Berlin. It's nighttime, and Jake is sitting there eating his breakfast in San Francisco in the daytime. And my introduction was amazing. I'm a product designer and I run a design agency. And myself and Jake, we do some work together. We do some design sprint training, some backflipping, some breakfast eating.
A lot of backflips. Yeah.
Too many backflips.
And a lot of breakfast.
I actually need you to move your microphone down one more time again. It's weird.
Okay,
It seems to be that this microphone is, I don't know. It seems like
it might be me too. I might be kind of bobbing and weaving around here.
Yeah, it seems to max out every so often.
Listening at home, I have a setup here where I have a stack of books holding up this microphone.
Yeah, it looks
so. Oh boy. Okay, so I perilously removed a book.
Can we tell? What book was it?
That was the 4-hour work week. So far,
also great.
So far removed the 4-hour work week, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, and Leonardo da Vinci by Walter Isaacson.
Love it.
I have not read that. That's my son's book, but that was a big one. That we lost like 3 inches that time.
It still seems to be that you're a bit too loud. I think we need to go. We need to take another book away.
Okay.
You got to tell us what
next
it is.
One. Okay. The next book I'm taking out is going to be The Startup Way by Eric Ries.
You haven't finished this one.
Sorry to lose that one. But how about that? How about now?
I think we can work with that. Yeah. I mean, this first episode, clearly we're having some issues already, but it's just going to go downhill from here, I think. If you can keep your voice completely flat, just completely flat.
Yeah. Okay. If you could just dub in later the voice of the like Mac and talk, just kind of being like
over your voice,
that would be great. Yeah, that would be perfect.
Cool. So the general idea about the show is that, or the general idea that we kind of thought about, and I'm sure it will change over time, is that we bring 1 or 2 topics for each other to talk about, as in like conversation pieces. I have no idea if you brought anything, but I brought something.
I'll think of something while you're talking.
Okay. Well, I think the first one's going to be easy because actually it's something that you introduced me to, and it's actually a book. It's called The Power of Moments. And this is something you were kind of blabbing on for ages about, like that you were reading like the pre-release version of it or something. I don't know, but you were telling me how great it was. And I wasn't really listening, but eventually I kind of saw it popping up on Amazon, and I actually bought the physical copy. Here it is. And it's really, really, really amazing. I'm super impressed by it, but I cannot get through it because every page I read, I have to stop and just start doing stuff that I'm seeing in there. It's just really completely blowing my mind. And it's such
same here. This is my copy, and it's like you can see if you're watching on YouTube that there's this like every page is dog-eared. It's just amazing. Yeah. Such a good book.
It's really
all these
really
underlines. Cool. Yeah, it's amazing.
So because you're super prepared as well, and we both are, what actually might be interesting is just maybe just give me like a quick overview of what the book's about. And I kind of wanted to talk about some specific things in it that might be interesting for people. Also in terms of just like designing products or innovation sort of stuff that I think that could be interesting for people. Just pulled out a few highlights.
Yeah. Did you wanted me to give an overview?
Yeah, maybe. I think that if I give an overview of this, I just got to read the back.
Just let me read from the back here. You guys would just be patient.
And Dan Heath.
I'll give you an overview.
Just what you how you convinced me to get it.
Basically, this book is by these guys, Chip and Dan Heath, who wrote Made to Stick, which is one of my favorite books ever.
I didn't like it.
Hugely influential in the writing of Sprint, actually. So we sought out the same agent and the same editor who worked on Made to Stick. I just think it's an excellent book. The cool thing about the Power of Habits Power of Moments.
What are you talking about? The cool thing about the 4-hour work week.
Power of Habits is another good book. Well, they got me. They tripped me up with the power of. I mean, a lot of the words in the title are the same. But the cool thing I thought was it's about moments. It's about like, how impactful a moment can be. And one thing that has been a big part of the design sprint process is getting a team to think about a moment instead of thinking about the whole or thinking about their launch metrics. All these things that are important, but the way people experience life is through moments. And there are often these key critical moments in, your adoption of a product, when you're learning about a product, that shape whether you're going to go for it or not, whether you're going to understand it. And what's cool about this book, it's not just about product design, but it's really thinking through like, how do you make those moments exceptional? And also, how do you apply that lens of looking at a broad map of, life or whatever, and picking out those key moments and trying to make them amazing. And they talk about ways to do that for individuals, ways to do it for your loved ones, ways to do it if you're running a business, just all kinds of things. And I was like, oh man, they took something that already really sort of was kind of vaguely in my head, but they just took it so much further than I had ever thought about what you could do, and really broke down how you make a moment great. So this is one of those books that most people won't think of, I think, as a business book or a design book. But if you do use it in that way, I think you gain a huge advantage, which has always been for me the cool thing about Made to Stick. It's like, if you think about this through the lens of design, you have like a huge advantage.
Yeah, I think so too. But I'm actually wondering that, like, who's going to buy this book? Who are they marketing it to? Because when I read it, immediately all the designers at AJ&Smart, I just bought them a copy because I was like, oh, this is perfect for designers.
Yeah.
But it's not really being marketed as that, right? It's kind of like a more broad topic.
Yeah, their books have been really successful. They've written, like, this is their fourth book, and I think that they write to a pretty broad audience, but it's not something I usually hear designers talking about a lot. So I do think it's kind of a secret weapon if you get into it. And if you think of it in that way, if you think of it as, how am I going to apply this to my product? I think for founders and, product managers and engineers, super interesting.
So are we saying that right now what we're doing is giving a very secret tip to the designers that they've never heard before, that we can put in all caps on YouTube? The secret thing, I think, this one thing.
Secret weapon, all caps, secret weapon, which is, I think, a candidate for the title of this podcast. It could be the Secret Weapon Podcast.
Okay. The actual name for the podcast, not just this episode.
No, but every episode.
Every episode is called Secret Weapon. Okay, cool. Yeah. I actually think so. The Secret Weapon Podcast, number 37. We have 3 listeners. Technically, right now, as we record this, we have 0 listeners. So, guys, we're any listeners.
I'm not even listening.
It's just going to be us listening back to it. I don't even think I want to hear this. So, I mean, actually, just because I guess this is not really a book review. It's just more like a recommendation, like a book that maybe you haven't heard of that we're recommending. Even though I know you probably want me to recommend Sprint over and over again in every episode. Is that what you told me?
Could you do that? That's what I thought we agreed to.
Guys, I don't even have damn. I would recommend buying this book called Sprint. It's very, I don't really know what it's about because I didn't read it, but it's very, very bad. I have a copy here, but it's part of my microphone stand, so I can't even hold it up for YouTube viewers. Every copy is. So actually, we could like have this podcast sponsored by you selling your book. That wouldn't be weird at all. Okay, I actually did want to point out, like, I pulled out like 2 bits. Which are suspiciously near the start of the book, which might lead you to think that I haven't finished it yet, which is definitely true. But I think that one thing is what I really, really like about this power of moments thing. If anyone's listening and they're kind of confused about what is a moment? I'm not going to be able to help you out there because it's kind of these things that humans remember. I guess that's what they talk about. Like the writers talk about, like that, for example, organizations, they think of things in goals. They think of kind of working towards things. Whereas humans think of things or remember things in moments. They're not thinking, oh yeah, I remember we were working towards that thing. They'll remember these specific moments, and that organizations are not really engineered or created to spot them. And it's not a habit that organizations or people actually have. It's something you have to learn. So it's not something automatic that you're just like, oh, okay, we're building this product or we're building this company. Let's actually take care that we're building these moments that people remember, that are memorable and enjoyable to people. And let's watch out and make sure we engineer them. And I think that that's something really, really cool about the book, where it goes into a lot of case studies about, how one company or how one organization for example, dramatically improve the onboarding process for employees by creating these moments. And what I really like about it as well is that you don't need to, I guess that's kind of something what I like about Sprint as well. Sprint, the book by Jake Knapp. What I like about Sprint as well is that you don't need to change your entire organization, or you don't need to change your entire processes to just say, hey, let's layer on this moment spotting skill and let's actually sort of add these moments to our system. And I think that's really, really cool. So, I mean, I read honestly like 3 chapters and I immediately started changing how our training programs are working at AJ&Smart based on that. So it was just one of these things that was just like immediately useful for me. And I think that's something as well. Once I was sitting with a client in the same week, I was just thinking differently about how I was designing the product I was working on because of reading this book. So really, really cool book. Definitely recommend it. Unfortunately, we get no money if you buy it. So
yeah, that's the worst part of this podcast is how we don't get any money for recommending things.
That's the
it's
main
just from
problem.
the goodness of our heart. I mean, it's just us being good people. I think is why we're doing this.
Yeah, definitely.
By Sprint. But you can buy both at the same time.
With everything we recommend, you should buy a copy of Sprint.
Yeah, one of the things in this book that really like stood out for me, and again, it is also at the beginning, so you might question whether we read the whole thing, but we did. Yeah, back to the title again. But there's this part where they go through like a day at Disneyland, and they're like, imagine that you scored like these individual moments at Disneyland. You ask somebody to like rate their experience in the moment, and you go through kind of hour by hour, and like, oh, you're like waiting in line, like it sucks, it's really hot or whatever. Like you're like, you know, you're like getting like you're eating. It's like maybe it's okay, but it's not great. Like you have to like you're buying something, it's expensive. It's like so it's okay, it's not great. We're like on the roller coaster. It's like a 10. It's like a 10 out of 10. It's so great. And you have a few like some pretty good moments and like this peak moment of being on, you know, Space Mountain or whatever. It's actually not my favorite roller coaster, but it's okay. I'm too tall for Space Mountain. It's a little scary. But you like if you look back and average out all those moments in the book they talk about, you'd have like a 6.5. But then if you actually ask people to score that day later, they would score it a 9 because they remember like the highlight moment. They remember that like greatest moment, and that colors everything else. And that's kind of like, I mean, here we are right now, like Jonathan and I we're using Skype, right? So you and I are talking on Skype, and it's working pretty well now that we're in it. And I will probably later on remember like mostly that this was like, you know, like a pretty good experience using Skype because the actual video works okay.
From
the
your
audio
perspective.
works okay once you get into it. From my perspective. But the setup took us like
7 days.
45 minutes. Oh God.
No, I didn't.
But it's true. I mean, if you can focus in and get that one moment really amazing, sometimes it actually is. You know, we're very inclined to. They talk also about this idea of filling pits versus like making peaks higher. And a lot of times, as a product team, you or any kind of organization, you get focused in on filling pits when things are not going well. Let's try to make it go a little better. And you know what they're saying is like, yeah, like you shouldn't ignore those, but those peaks can actually be much more important and making the peaks even higher. Yeah, and I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. This thing about the kind of optimizing for the peaks instead of filling the pits, they go through this like scale where they say, okay, and like rate, let's say all these people went to a workshop, now have them rate it on a scale of 1 to 7. And now you have all the ratings in. What should you optimize for? Should you optimize making the 4, 5s, and 6 better, like bringing those 4, 5s, and 6s up to 5, 6, and 7s? Or should you put the investment into getting the people who scored like 1, 2, and 3 up to 4, 5, and 6? And they're kind of questioning, and they show a study that says you should be investing in the people or in these very positive moments or in the people who found it very good. And increasing the level of those instead of just trying to constantly, you know, make something like make the crap parts of the experience better. And they go into this one a really nice example of a hotel. I have no idea where it is, but it's like kind of crappy in turn, like if you would compare it directly to the room size compared to how much it costs, and like that it's a bit shabby and a little bit dirty. But the fact that they have these really nice experiences, like this pink phone that you pick up, and some guy in like shorts comes to the pool and gives you popsicles, like that. This experience, along with other really interesting, weird little cute experiences, make up for the fact that it's kind of rough around the edges and maybe not that interesting, or maybe something that people would usually give a bad score for. But this is like a hotel that's rated higher than like the Hilton or something, and it's also weirdly almost just as expensive, which is a crazy thing. And another, so I found that really interesting, because I think for the business I'm trying to build anyway, we're always focused on, okay, like, is the coffee perfect? Is this perfect? Apart from the whole design process, I get really kind of OCD about all the small things, which of course do add up. But maybe when I was reading this, I was thinking maybe like I should be focusing on making these things that people really love a lot better than just hacking away at this never-ending pile of small to-dos that are maybe not that important to them, but seem more important to me when I'm working on them. This is kind of what that section of the book got me excited about.
Yeah. I think there's this common thread as you go through this book, and it's true of their other books too, where they will describe something, and as I read it, I'm like, oh yeah, like that totally makes sense. Like in my own experience, that seems like that rings true. But they also then tell you like, and here's how to kind of like use that knowledge. Like now that you know that, here's what's going on when you have that feeling of, of like that it's weird that I liked that quirky thing more than the sort of mediocre but solid experience. This one, like the hotel with the popsicle line, like that stands out and we love it for some reason, and I don't know quite why. And they're kind of breaking down like, here's the mechanics of how that worked and how you could learn from it. So
it's really cool.
It's really cool.
One more thing I want to, because I actually remember this while we were talking, and I think that this is something that I see as like a generally huge problem in organizations, or in, I don't know, you could also kind of apply it to almost anything. But that the transitions are treated really badly or handled really badly in a lot of cases. And one example is that the end of projects in companies. So when let's say you've been working on this app for like 8 months and it finally gets released, or, the next version of it comes out, or however you're working on a project. And then there's this transition from you're working on it to, okay, we finished it and now we're onto something else. What usually happens at the end of a project is, you just start another project. Whereas in this Power of Moments book, they talk about the fact that like these endings, this sort of closure is extremely important. And I think that that's something that people really miss out on a lot as well in a lot of different industries, where it's like you finish something, you're closing the loop, make it explicit that the loop has now been closed before the next thing starts. And for me, at least, that was immediately like something where I was thinking, okay, when people here work on new products for however long, we should actually really make sure that we proactively make time to celebrate the fact that we finished this specific thing, even if it's just a feature, even if it's just a new rollout of a new feature, I said that twice, but how about a feature? But I think that
what if it was a new?
What about a feature?
But wait, what if it was a new feature?
If it's a new feature, it doesn't count. But it's like something where I'm just like, it's obvious we should do that, but we just don't think about it. And a new product we'd been working on for a while, launched yesterday. And in the past, I honestly wouldn't have done anything about that. I wouldn't have even checked if the product launched or not, because we're working on so many products. But this was something where I just took a screenshot of it because I saw it on the shelf. It was actually like a bar, like a food product. And posted it and like in our Slack channel and congratulated the team. And also then brought it up today in our little town hall meeting. And this sort of feeling of closure was super satisfying to me and to everyone else. And it's something that I think it just proves that even companies that are thinking about the service design of other companies, we ourselves are really bad at some things, and that these transitions, this sort of closure. And I think even as like a criticism of you and I, we run this design sprint workshop, and so I think there are parts of it where probably people feel like they're being left hanging, and that's something. It's something that that even just reading this book, where I'm like, oh my god, like there's so much opportunity to make people more satisfied by having these standout moments and this closure.
Yeah, I mean, you and I are getting together next week to talk about planning these workshops.
No, we're just getting up.
Use this book.
I thought we were just going to get drunk.
Yeah, well, you thought wrong, buddy. We are just going to be reviewing this book and talking about
okay, I'll finish it.
Minute by minute. We're going to make every moment.
I'm excited about
special.
it. We're actually I know this is probably not interesting for anyone who's listening, but that's exactly what we're doing today. That's why we have a podcast.
That's why we're doing this podcast.
Honestly, I mean, the amount of podcasts I listen to that are just like 2 hours of people talking about what happened last week at a barbecue, and I'm still somehow okay with it. So the problem is we don't have the credibility yet with having like enough episodes, you know?
That's right.
I want to tell you
we can keep
barbecue.
doing this. I mean, I'm not feeling tired. We can crank out these episodes.
Just bang them out
pretty soon.
You know, I actually really, it's such a pity that you don't play video games really anymore, because the Nintendo Switch is just killing it at the moment.
I know. I've been thinking about getting one, and my wife Holly was like, "I don't think it's a good idea for you," because she's seen what happens with me over time. I think that what we could do maybe is like, maybe we could get kind of on a future episode, like a kind of a Twitch kind of a scenario where you and I are playing video games head to head and talking about it. But it would have to be like
Mario,
like the original Nintendo. Yeah, I'd be like.
I mean, actually, what I've been playing, what I played all weekend, and last week I took vacation. As you know, as a European, I have like 18 months of vacation a year. Every time Jake sends me an email, it's like he gets my vacation responder.
Oh man, it's the worst.
It's funny being a founder of a company here compared to like in the US, and you're not the only one who kind of like complains about it or just is very confused. I'm working so hard to run this company. 2.5 months of vacation.
I used to work in Switzerland on the Gmail team, and there's a Gmail team in Switzerland, and there's in Zurich, and there's a team in California, and we would like. We were like always like they were just like, what is going on over there? Like we're trying to launch a new feature to roll that back in from the earlier in the podcast. But like they were like, what's going on? We're like, what we have vacation. It's vacation time, and it's a different culture. You guys are taking it easy over there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's also the reason why we get nothing done. I mean, if you look at all the products that we talk about or the products that the industry talks about, not so many of them are from Europe, because we're like chilling on the beach, it's very relaxing. Eating pasta.
You're just enjoying the fruits of everyone else's labor.
Exactly. Exactly.
People working so hard to make that Nintendo Switch for you.
Hey, and you're just was made in Japan. Hey, they get like half a day of holiday. They get like 3 hours of vacation. And actually, the interesting thing about Japan, and by the way, any Japanese people listening to this who maybe think I'm wrong about it, please tell me the actual correct, the correct thing. But what I think from being in Japan at the time when most of them go on vacation, I think that there are like designated times where they go on vacation all at the same time, the entire country, because that's the only explanation I have for being there in April when it's like the entire country was at all the sites I wanted to go to.
I think that's true. I think that this is not one of those times when you have like a horrible stereotype that I'm like, God, Jonathan, you can't say that. This is actually totally true, because I was planning to go there right before or right after you went, or at the same time, to do some sprint book promotion, just to loop that back in too. And they were like, yeah, like that you can't come during that time. No one is doing anything. They just shut down the country. Yeah. And I think it's for the cherry blossoms.
Yes, exactly. That's when I went there, and there was no Airbnbs. There were no hotels. It was crazy. It was a bad idea. Man. I have another topic for you, by the way.
Oh boy!
I know.
Okay.
I think this one.
Bring it on.
I mean, this is the one. This one you kind of know about already, because I sent you a little article about it a while ago, and you were like, "Hey, I'm going to help you edit this article," and I never heard anything back about it. So maybe I could just bring it up.
I'm going to.
Yeah.
Are we gonna live edit in a Google Doc?
Damn right. Let's live edit this. Let's live edit this. But I think that the topic, I'd still like to talk to you about the topic, because I think we agree on this one, and I think it's something that's also I rarely hear it being talked about. In fact, I usually hear the exact opposite of what we're about to talk about being talked about. And it's that there's this sort of innovation fetish, and it's something that is like let me set the scene. You're kind of you're going on the internet, you're going to theverge.com. By the way, I actually really like theverge.com. But you're going to theverge.com, you're going to TechCrunch, you're going to whatever.
Me too.
You like theverge.com as well?
I do. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
They should promote this podcast.
They should. If you're listening, theverge.com, if you could just put awesome new podcast,
promote
Secret Weapon podcast on like the homepage.
Exactly.
That would be great.
So guys, if you're listening to this podcast, share it with theverge.com and tell them that why would they promote our podcast? It makes no sense. Front page. Okay, so
I'm gonna, by the way, while you're setting the stage, I'm gonna take some bites. So for people on video, you can watch, and then maybe you should cut out the audio for people who have that thing. There's a thing where some people, when they hear chewing, it
they don't
makes
like
them
that.
like insanely furious. Yeah. My friend Daniel Burka has that.
He doesn't like it. Oh, he's also a big name. Yeah. Name dropping right there. Name drop. Yeah, that's just Jake name dropping.
My friend. That's just my friend. It's my buddy, Daniel. Yeah.
My friend, the president, doesn't like the sound. Does not like the sound of chewing. All right. What are you eating, by the way? It looks disgusting. That doesn't look like breakfast. What is it? Cream?
This is extremely, I think, European. I have some Greek yogurt here, and I have some apple slices and some walnuts. It's just very simple foods, very healthy.
You have to keep in mind that
Wait till you see how smart I'm going to be after I eat this. Yeah. My blood sugar level is going to be up here. We're going to power through this next topic.
It's actually kind of weird. I mean, we obviously have different. I mean, I don't know. I'm assuming just because it's nighttime for me, I've already had my entire day of work and like thinking, and you're just starting. You just woke up. Maybe you're at the same energy level now.
Yeah.
Think about it. Okay, so the next topic, I'm setting the stage for you. So you go on theverge.com, you go on TechCrunch, you go on whatever, and you're looking at the top stories, and they're all about really exciting things, right? It's about, this new innovative thing from Snapchat, or this new innovative thing, this new different, exciting, innovative VR helmet that shoots water out the front of it. You know the one. And what I started to notice over the last few years is that, okay, of course, these news sites, it makes sense. Why would you talk about really boring iterative stuff on the front page? Right. It makes sense. It's like more exciting to read about things that are exciting, that are new, that are different, regardless of whether they're successful or not, right? It like a lot of these things like the Magic Leap and everything, they're not like mainstream products yet, but they're being talked about a lot. You look like you're struggling with that food, by the way. And the problem is that a lot of companies who are maybe not so, at least this from my perspective, a lot of companies who are sort of going through this whole digital transformation thing at the moment, who are maybe not super comfortable with how they produce products. Maybe they're just getting used to this whole, this is how you make a product thing. They're doing their design thinking. They're doing all of this stuff. They're trying to get ready for the new world. But they're reading all of these headlines. They're reading all of this stuff. They're listening to all of these crappy podcasts that we're creating, talking about innovation. God. And they have this I think slightly twisted impression that innovation is all about newness, all about exciting, crazy stuff, about sending rockets into space, when a lot, or if not most, of the successful products you see on the market are the result of just remixing and constant iteration with really, really good, consistent execution. Now, obviously, you don't want to write about that. Obviously, the front page of the Verge isn't going to say, this tiny iteration that now 5 years later has been integrated into this other service is now making Apple 17 million a day, because it's super boring. But this is actually the truth. Like, this is the successful products that you're seeing on the market are the result of such unbelievably slow, granular, pragmatic iteration. Yeah. And this is this sort of truth, this sort of, maybe realistic definition of what innovation is, which is remixing things in the right way and executing them well, is, it's just sort of ignored.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it's interesting because it's this culture of of news, and like we can get. It's only for like the last 100 years or so.
100. We're going back 100 years. Okay.
Yeah, this is one of those things.
Okay, let's go back 100 years. Okay.
I'm find like a big story for you. But like, but it's seriously, like we've only had like daily news is only like what, like 100 years old, right? Like we haven't had daily news. People weren't like getting the daily paper in the Middle Ages, right? I mean, that's not like humans have been around for 200,000 years. We've had daily news for 100 years. And for the last, like, I don't know, since maybe CNN was around, we've had like breaking news kind of all the time. And just really in the last maybe decade or so, couple decades, we've had all this news online so that you could always go online and get new news. Like I'm sure if you go to The Verge, you go to TechCrunch, there's gonna be new stuff like all throughout the day. There's some new stuff on there. And this is like, that's not actually necessary. There's not that many updates that we need to have. You don't need to know what's going on every 5 minutes, but there's money to be made there. Yeah. And there's this like arms race between all of the different things competing for your attention. And the news is competing against Facebook, is competing against Twitter, Instagram, whatever you use. It's like all that stuff is competing for your attention all the time. So the news has to push, like it's got to be always something new. And it skews our perspective. If that's how you get your news, you are going to think like that those innovations really matter. And I think that the news is actually like, there's also this kind of cult of like, honestly, there's people from Google, and I think Google's great, but they're always talking about we got to do things like 10x, not 10%, 10x, not 10%. And there's something to that. Like that's an interesting idea. But the reality of what's happening right now, you don't need to know the tech news except on like a weekly or like a monthly basis. You would be fine. You would be totally fine because all that's happening right now is like Facebook, Google and Amazon and Netflix, like these big companies are just like dominating. And the things that they're dominating with have been around for a long time. Like they were, and when they came out, they were not this crazy brand new, like crazy thing. They were iterations of things that were already there. So like Google came out, there was search, there was web search. Google's was way better, but there was already web search around. When Facebook came out, there were already social networks. Facebook just saw that was interesting. They looked at MySpace, they looked at Friendster, and they were like, oh, but there's something to that. Those guys aren't doing it right. We're going to do it better. And it's still Facebook. It's like, that's the thing. They come up with all this new stuff. Google comes up with all these new things. They rarely come up with a hit product from scratch. It's really hard to do. Now, Gmail, like tons of people use Gmail. It is like almost the same as when I was working on it in 2007 and 8. And when I was working on it, it was the same as when it had launched almost. I mean, it has really not changed that much. Yeah. It's not like I was innovating back then. Like you really are, it's this process of finding the right thing that's usually copied from somebody else and improved upon. You notice this nascent, like, oh, this is interesting. People just aren't quite nailing it yet. I'm going to go after that successful product and do it much better. Yeah. It's actually kind of what Instagram did, right? Instagram's looking at Facebook. It's like, we're going to do that better. And it's weird now because Facebook bought them. But like, you see something good that's already successful, you do it better, and then you execute on it and you improve it for years. And that's the things that are really like making a huge impact in our lives right now. That's what most of them are. They're not these crazy innovative things. I mean, even like SpaceX. Rockets are from like the 1950s and 60s.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's not,
for sure.
It's not like new stuff, like, right? I mean, not to like diminish how hard it is. It's super hard, and not to diminish that you have to be bold and like all this stuff. But the technology is like, it's that stuff. A lot of that stuff just doesn't matter. All those new things and innovation. And I think it hurts a lot of companies and it hurts a lot of teams because they feel this pressure to do something amazing. Yeah. When really what we need to do is find the core of what we're doing and execute on it really well. We don't have to be innovative in every aspect of everything we do.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly right. What you're saying about it. It hurts teams. I've worked with a lot of companies where that's one of the things that I really feel like is holding them back, where they're working on something that's maybe, not super exciting, like a video call service like Skype, right? Or something like that. But they want to build a version of that for their company because it will integrate with their services. But they're so stuck on making sure that it's innovative. And when they think about innovative, they think about having like a crazy navigation structure like Snapchat, or having like AR built into it, or, like maybe we have to have a VR version at launch, and they don't really know why, or if it makes any business sense, or if anyone will use it, but they don't want to present something that's potentially boring to their stakeholders because they know that their stakeholders are reading like the Verge and reading all of these things about these crazy companies like Magic Leap and like Snapchat, and okay, just use Snapchat again, but you know what I mean, like all these crazy things. But and also
they're launching new features.
Exactly, launching new features. But you also like a lot of the stuff you hear from Google, a lot of the kind of public products that they talk about are these things like the VR headsets, which maybe for Google is not really even that much of a big investment, but for a company that might be trying to, bring products out who are not so used to it, would be a huge investment and a huge deal if it didn't work. But they're seeing these things and they're really getting this skewed idea. And there's this great, I'm not going to talk about another book in detail, but in this article that I was, that you're helping me edit, there's this great book called Anything You Want by Derek Sivers. There's one chapter in there which talks about ideas and how ideas are not as important as people think. And he has this like table which shows that that ideas are just a multiplier of execution. So that you can have like a good idea, but if you execute it really well, it might be worth billions. But you can have a really amazing idea, so something very unique and very different, but good or bad or kind of mediocre execution means it's still worth nothing. So I think that a lot of, at least for the advice that I give, these companies who are maybe not so, used to releasing products fast, they don't have this sort of product or innovation culture. I generally recommend them to just attempt getting some basic things right first. So taking something good and executing it really, really well, rather than spending a lot of time trying to think of something very, very new and then kind of making a half-assed version of it that's very kind of, it also really makes everybody very unmotivated when these things come out and then fail. Yeah, and they're like, well, we created something innovative though. At least it was something crazy. But I don't know. It's a bit of a rant. I mean, it's something that what happens is, I mean, this is probably just me kind of trying to rant, because when I'm working with companies, it does come up, and we've seen it come up in workshops as well, where people say, well, with the design sprint, it's so fast and it's so like, you just kind of stampede through all of the work. How can you really innovate if you don't have time to be creative and you don't have time to think about these crazy ideas and you don't have time to like combine all of this stuff? And sometimes the answer we give is just like, well, why does it have to be what your definition of innovative is, which is new and crazy and unique and hasn't been seen before? Why can't it just be a very well executed version of something that already exists? I mean, if you even look at something like the Amazon Alexa right now, this whole Echo thing, and it's not that this is something completely mind-blowing. People obviously talk about it as if it's this like, oh my god, Amazon are crazy. But of course we've had these voice assistants forever, but they cleverly packaged it in a voice only system that made people interested and excited about this kind of smart home thing, which has also been around for 3,000 years. And the reason they can do something like that is because they're a powerful company that integrates into everything. It's not like in the morning some Kickstarter project is going to be able to take over the market with the same thing. Of course, they would have to have something very unique. But I think even this Kickstarter is responsible for a lot of this as well. Because you have like the front pages of The Verge when they run out of ideas. You see these crazy Kickstarters and you're like, whoa, oh my God, look what these guys are doing with this new watch.
The future is coming.
Yeah, this watch kind of dispenses stamps so you don't have to go and buy stamps anymore. I think it's just like, it's a dangerous path. It's something that people get kind of hung up. And I also get hung up on these things as well when I want to, with growing AJ&Smart, I'm like, yeah, we really have to do something really, really unique here. And actually, sometimes we just need to do the same thing, but just much better or more well executed or more focused. And I think it's just like, that's it. That's my rant.
To kind of draw that into what we were talking about earlier, it's a lot of what happens in a design sprint, I think, is you're trying to help a team understand what's special about what you're doing, what's important, what's the important challenge you're trying to solve. And with luck, somebody's solution in the sprint will get at the heart of what that team can do that is special to them. And there are advantages. I mean, if you look at these sort of Google Home, Alexa, the Apple Home, like everybody coming out with their own version of that same device.
So innovative.
They're all going to try to, this is so innovative, right? And these are the companies everybody's like, they're so innovative. They're all copying each other. But if they come out with something that, they're each going to try to make it special for what they do that's special. Google's going to try to have their like, what makes Google's better, what makes Apple's better, what makes Amazon's better. And they each have their own strengths as a company. Their technology has its own strengths. That's what any team needs to do when they're, thinking about their core challenge that's in the sprint. They got to try to figure out what makes us special, and let's focus on that one thing. And often it is like a moment. It's this one little part. And if you can do that one part really, really well, we can set ourselves, ahead of everyone else. But a lot of the work that has to happen is just execution. It does not need to be innovative at every step of the way. You just need to find maybe that one moment, that one part that's just so much better than everyone else, and then work really hard to make it shine. But a lot of like slow, hard work is not exciting. It's
but
not
that's
really
a boring answer,
headline-worthy.
Jake. We want to hear the snappy 10x answer. Come on, man. The answer is obviously put an AR like part into that product. Yeah,
I think that is the key for everything. Is just AR.
It's like, VR is over now, so we just have to stick that AR stuff on there.
Right.
I really, actually, it really irritates me when I open up an app and there's no AR. It's really, just gets me.
It's that. It's a deal breaker. I was pretty frustrated that this podcast is not in AR.
It will be. It will be. We're working on it.
Okay.
Yeah, post-production, we're going to put like loads of floating clouds and there'll be stuff behind me, so you won't.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's going to be.
We'll be like, where is he?
What is this? Oh, great. That's actually all I brought to this. Those are the two topics that I brought to this this podcast, which is now called the Breakfast Innovation Club. How about the 10x breakfast?
What about the secret weapon 10x breakfast?
Secret weapon.
Don't forget secret weapon.
Secret weapon 10x breakfast. Okay. I want to talk about one more thing. It's unfortunate.
By the way, that's if you want to know how to do good design and innovation, it's to just glom things together. Yeah. It's the way we're coming up with this title. Every time something comes up, you just add it in, and that's the way you get the best design, the best products.
I 100% agree. Just stick stuff together. Breakfast Club Innovation Product Design 17. Because it's 2017.
2017. But that should be the title of forever, even when we're doing this 10 years from now.
Yeah, absolutely. Could you move a little bit again this way?
Oh, God.
Yeah. All right. No, a little bit bit this way. Yeah. Okay. So what I was actually going to finish up with is that on our Instagram, I asked people to send in some questions. I have a few questions for you specifically.
Oh. Wow. I was not expecting this. So I haven't seen these questions. This is going to be
but
they're on your phone right now.
Yeah. Okay.
So you were texting. What you're saying is, well, I was trying to have a nice conversation with you on this podcast.
Blah, blah,
You've
blah.
been on your phone. God.
Well, I asked people earlier.
You're a millennial.
Yeah, exactly.
I've had a policy of never doing podcasts with millennials, and I broke it thinking that you would honor the trust of a conversation. Fine.
This is me asking people to send their questions. Okay, so let's have a look here. We have like 10 questions. I'm just going to ask you 3 of the most interesting ones. Okay,
would you also ask me 2 of the worst ones? The most boring ones.
But then I'm not going to tell you who sent the questions then.
Okay. Well, no. Do 3 best. 3 best. 3 best.
3 best. Okay. Question 1. Mayonnaise. Okay, not that question. That's the worst question.
Actually, that's so weird that someone should say that, because yesterday we had a surprise birthday party for my wife, and I ordered too many pizzas, and we had to get the pizzas into the fridge, and I had to reorganize everything, and I found a big jar of mayonnaise that was sealed, so it had not been opened yet, and you don't have to refrigerate that.
Really?
So I took it out, and that unlocked. That was the key. It was like in Zelda when you open like a block or something. It was like that. And then I put the pizzas in. So it's almost as if that Instagram person knew.
Okay, I'm just going to go for a question and stop. Like, I'm just going to stop you right there.
Okay, we can cut. Should we cut out the mayonnaise part?
I just
maybe
don't
later?
know. I think that it's going to be too much work to edit this, so we probably just leave that in. I like it. So, question.
I thought we were gonna.
We're definitely leaving that in. Okay, here's a question for you, Jake. And I definitely have asked you this one before, but there's, you know what they say, always ask it again.
Yep, always. That's what they say.
That's what they say. So, Jake, what is your advice for getting a job in product design? Woo! Right out of college.
Ooh, wow. Right. Okay. My advice.
No experience. It doesn't say no experience, but I'm assuming it means no experience.
Yeah. I think we should both answer this because you have more experience hiring people than I do. I have tried to avoid that when at all possible, but I can tell you about my own experience.
Give us your answer anyway, sure.
And yeah, which is just like do projects on your own, make stuff whenever possible. So do it on your own. I was making like little games and making I would actually just make my portfolio and make it better and better and teach myself. At that time, this is a long time ago, but I was teaching myself how to use Flash and program Flash and do animations and stuff. And then also, if you can take on any project for a nonprofit, if you can find somebody, a friend who has a business, you can redo their website, you can just get in reps, get in practice making things, and then tell the story of those things really well in your portfolio. So in your portfolio, make sure you can show, here's the challenge, here's the goal of what I was trying to do, here's the steps to how I got there. And I don't mean to plug the sprint book too much, but
here we go.
A lot of what goes on in there is the kind of things that I think people need to know. What was the goal of this? Who's the audience? How would you know if this is successful or not? What kinds of sketches or different solutions did you consider? How did you prototype? How did you test it? People want to know that kind of stuff. So you can create those kinds of projects for yourself, I think. And if you then you're creating experience for yourself too. So that was what I did, and that got me a job a long time ago when nobody really had design degrees, so it was a little bit easier. But I didn't have a design degree, so that was my trick. What about you? When you're hiring people, what are you looking for?
So the cool thing is I don't have any of the same recommendations as you. So maybe we can. I'm getting a little bit cold here, by the way.
You just put on a blanket.
It's really cold.
And for those of you who are not watching on YouTube, Jonathan just put on
a fluffy blanket,
a Jedi robe. No, you look like Obi-Wan Kenobi all of a sudden.
Hello, my son.
It was right as you started to answer the question. You're just come into my cave.
Well, okay, I'll give you my advice. It's weird. It's in Berlin. It's after getting super cold outside, and we have floor heating in the office. And somehow this room, I just didn't turn it on, and it's cold. Okay, so I actually think that. So the way I think about getting a job in UX or in product design or anything like that, I try to think of it from the point of view of what if I don't have a portfolio? So I've got this chicken and egg problem where people are not going to ask me to do work to fill up my portfolio with. So I have to go kind of actively look for it. Or I have to, the thing I worry about is when I do kind of fake projects as well, maybe people don't really care about those. When I show them, if I go to an interview and I say, okay, here are my projects, and they say, did you, maybe that shows me that you're skilled as a UI designer, but it doesn't tell me that you know how to, understand decision making or whatever. So I have a couple of tips, or what I would do if I was tomorrow, if I left college and I was wanting to fast track my way into a product design job, maybe for example, at Google, because that's the first one you want to get. So what I would do...
AJ&Smart, that's where everybody wants to work these days.
Come work at AJ&Smart. That's the only way to do it. That's the only way into Google, by the way. We're like the gatekeepers right now for Google's hiring process. Okay, so one thing I would do is I would immediately open up meetup.com, type in UX design, type in product design, and look for all the events I can find under those titles and have a look and try to go to a couple of the interesting ones. Second thing I would do is I would look at the companies I would want to work at, and I would go to their Facebook page and I'd see if they have events. And if they have an event, I would try to contact their event manager or their community manager on Facebook, and I'd ask them if I can volunteer at the event. Then I would volunteer at the event, and I would work my ass clean off, do literally every possible imaginable thing to show them how insanely proactive I am. And notice I have done 0 design work so far. But really just like unbelievably proactively, or basically showing if I'm volunteering at one of these events, like for example, I know that like for like Airbnb and Spotify and these companies, they do hold these pretty big design meetups, and they do look for volunteers. Yeah. The problem is that they don't like need to really look for volunteers, because the volunteers are like desperate to go and do these things. So you need to, if you get in the door once, then you really need to show that you're like super proactive. And the reason I would do that is because I'd be looking for contacts within the company, because I'd want to get chatting to people and find out what it is they actually want to see from me if I would want to apply for a job there, or apply for some sort of a junior position or an internship, because every company has their own sort of unwritten rules of how they hire. Like even if they have it, explicitly written that they want to see a portfolio, I've gotten a lot of positions with no portfolio. And even if they say they want you to do this or that or whatever, I've also gotten a lot of positions without doing any of that. And people have gotten positions at AJ&Smart by completely going a lateral way. And I think that it's like, at least from my perspective, what is equally or more important than having work to show, especially at the start when you don't really have anything, is to show how enthusiastic and proactive you are and how willing to learn you are. And for me, I think then like that would be the path, of course, to get maybe an internship, maybe a paid internship, which I think is extremely invaluable if you can get it, especially if you go into one of these companies where you can learn a lot. But ideally, you want to be trying to aim for a junior position or something like this. So for me, I would try to let's say if I happen to also do some work for nonprofits and whatever at the side, my core, the main chunk of my time would be spent going to events, not going to networking events. It's actually a waste of time just being a person at the event, meeting people. What you want to do is kind of volunteer at it and get to know the people at the company who's running that event. And these are the connections that you want to make. And that's the timer. I got to stop talking now. I can ramble about this.
Did you set a timer for your answer?
Yeah, I set a timer for this podcast, actually.
Sorry, everybody who's still
goodbye.
listening.
Goodbye.
Now we're into the... Yeah.
Okay, I'll summarize it.
It pains me.
Volunteer.
It pains me to say it. But I think that your answer might have been better than mine.
No, I think my answer was just more of a ramble. I mean, look, your answer. You were working at Google. You got in the door there. You don't know what it's like in the real world, man.
Well, I think that if you can do what you're talking about, I think that's huge. Like that, actually, if there's a way for you to demonstrate your enthusiasm, if you are the kind of person who can perform well in that setting, that is excellent, and that is better than, because a lot of people are going to have projects in their portfolios. I mean, that's fine. I think that if you're more introverted and you're not so comfortable with that, and one thing to keep in mind is that Jonathan is really comfortable like putting himself in that situation, and you're gonna like you would have made a good impression on people. I think the people who work at AJ&Smart, most folks like I'm there, most of them, I say most because we all know who at AJ&Smart is not extroverted and fun, and it's you. It's
me. I know. I'm this quiet one.
Everybody, no, but you guys have a team that's really like, you guys are
rowdy.
Like, you're fun. You're extroverted. And I think that there are introverted people who are going to listen to that and say, man, like I want to go to that meetup, like that is going to suck for me. Okay. And I think that riffing on what Jonathan says, I think another thing you could try to do is find someone and like contact them through like LinkedIn, or if you can find their email or whatever, who works at a place you want to work at, and don't go for like the like VP of design or like the design manager. Just go
CEO.
For like, if you're a junior starting person, just go straight to the CEO. No, just go for like a designer there, like somebody who and just say, hey, like, look, I'm somebody who's right out of college. Like, you have my dream job right now. Would you meet me for coffee and just tell me how you got there, like what you did? Like, I would love to take a chat like that when I was in that position, that would have been great. Because the people who are getting bombarded with that stuff are the managers, the directors, the heads of design. I think you just find like a designer, an individual contributor, and see if they would chat with you. And if you ask a few people, if you cold contact a few people and you're really sincere and authentic and you don't sound like you just talk to them like a person, you're going to find people who want to talk. And that's also going to start to show you what goes on there and demystify good stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. Like, I think it's like there's a lot of information out there telling you not to contact people and ask them to go for a coffee, because this sort of, hey, let me pick your brain thing for sure is a little bit annoying. Don't write, let me pick your brain.
It is.
Yeah. I think that you do need to, like, on the one hand, I love giving people advice, right? If someone walks up to me and asks me on the spot for advice, I will talk to them for 1 hour straight and tell them everything they want to know.
Sometimes even when they didn't ask you for advice.
I just find somebody and I'm
Jonathan,
like, hey,
do you want a coffee? And then it's just like, oh God, 60 minutes later.
Exactly. That's how I do it. But I think one of the things is, like, I guess something probably just from my perspective, if you want to really make sure that works, you can combine our two answers and you can look for an event that this person is going to, and then you can talk to them. And I think then they don't have to change their schedule to chat to you. And that's something that's maybe interesting as well. I think that's also like a little hack where you use just my last, and this question, by the way, has just opened a box of worms. I have one more answer to you for it.
A box of worms.
A box of worms.
Is that what you guys say in Ireland?
It's an old Irish saying. By the way, I'm Irish, in case you're confused about my accent. So a box of worms has been opened, and I have one more thing to say on it. If you're looking, so Jake just said, hey, send this person an email. They're totally going to write back and be your best buddy. You know what? What they actually will do is that it will fall into their giant pile of emails. And if you're lucky, they'll get back to you. Like, I guess I was kind of lucky that Jake got back to me the first time I contacted him. But I also did a little bit of engineering in the background so that it wasn't just like a cold, hey, be my buddy email. There was like some weight behind it. Like I wrote an article and all this other crap. But I would say that a good approach would be to look, let's say you're trying to contact Tim, one of our designers here at AJ&Smart, right? You're looking for a job in a design agency and you want to get a job there. Send him an email. It's going to fall into a pit. But if you check out his least crowded channel, which I would say for Tim is probably his Instagram, and you send him a message there, he's getting maybe one Instagram message a week or one Instagram message a month. He's going to notice that and he's going to see it. And that was something I mentioned in a YouTube video that we made a while ago. And honestly, the first person who sent me a message on Instagram, on my personal Instagram, they ended up being an intern here at AJ&Smart. Not just, they were also really good, but it was like a way that it was so easy for me. It popped up on my phone. I was like, oh, cool. Contact this person. So sometimes all you're looking for is like someone to tell you who really to contact, and going through their least crowded channel is a sneaky, nice way to do it. So like Twitter and Instagram, sometimes, unless you're a hermit like Jake, is a great way to contact people. Oh man, that question.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. The person who asked that question is no longer listening, but that was a really good. That was a fun.
Thank you, James.
Do you have another? Is there another question? We're actually.
I do have. I can ask one last question, and we can just see. I mean, I actually think that this is quite a hard one. The last one.
Okay. All right. Let's do it.
It's. I guess I shouldn't say. It's after being directly emailed to me from somebody working at one of my clients' companies. So I won't say the name of the company, but it's a great question. Okay. You've probably answered this 1,000 times. I'm finding it hard to convince my managers to introduce the design sprint system into our company, even though I believe in it.
Yeah.
That also, there's no question mark. Yeah. It just says it. Yeah. Help me, Jake.
Yeah, you should give up, I think.
That's what I was going to say. Just fuck it. Doesn't work right. Anyway.
That is a really common question. And I think there are, you and I usually talk about this. We say, look, like you can do, there's like the grassroots approach. There's like, you just take bits and pieces from the design sprint process. You try to kind of weave them into a meeting here, a meeting there, and you familiarize people with it. That's one thing you can try to do. I think that might be a slow road, but I've heard of people being successful with that path. You might wait for the right time. So when I was first starting to do design sprints at Google, and nobody, it wasn't even a thing. Like nobody knew what I was talking about. I would sort of like wait until like I talked to a team who really needed it. They were starting off something big and they were feeling some stress about which direction they should take. How should they get started on this project? And that was the time to offer this, hey, in that case, taking a week to figure things out, that might be actually really fast. And it's more clear at the beginning of something. So you might have to be patient and just wait for that right moment. You can also try the lightning decision jam, which is the AJ&Smart's kind of half-hour long, it's like super well structured approach to a lot of the design sprint activities kind of in this package. Yeah, it's really good. And I hear so many good things from people who have tried it, and people like are really like they do the lightning decision jam. You just go into a meeting where you have to make a decision about something. You run this process, and then afterwards, it's like people are like, "Oh, that was so much better than if we had done it the normal way." And then you say, "That was a design sprint."
Yeah.
But the other thing I think is to like if you've tried all those things or whatever, and like it's not working, I think making the case to the person who has the authority to mandate it is also. Like I've heard good things about that, although that seems like kind of crazy, like almost like a last resort. But just go to like the decision maker, go to the CEO or the whoever's in, I don't know how big the company is, VP, whatever. Be like, look, we are wasting time the way we're working. I think this is a much better way for us to work. It's not crazy. It's not some crazy thing. There are a lot of teams doing this. Teams are doing this at Google and Facebook and Apple and Amazon, like every company that we respect, teams are doing this. It's not nuts. I think we should try it. And I think that can trigger this thing where the person who really has the most authority to also make it a success says, look, clear the schedule. I will be there. I will do it. And if that person says no, then
kill them.
Just wait. You can always do that, but I think that's also worth considering.
Great. I think that's a great answer, and I'm not even going to expand on it, except I'll tell you that Lightning Decision Jam is basically a crushed down, short, like example exercise, which takes a lot of the principles of the design sprint process and puts it into like this 30 to 45 minute exercise. So you can find that on the Google if you Google Lightning Decision Jam.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys have a really nice how-to article about how to run it, and there's also a YouTube video that shows how to do it. It's really easy. I think that would be, everybody should do that before they do a sprint, actually, because it's a nice introduction.
Great. I love it. And there's also nothing
you just checked your phone. Are you getting some text there? I
have another question that just came through, but I'm actually not going to ask it. It was, it's related to people complaining about the design sprint process on Twitter. I think that's going to be another whole episode. I guess if you put something out there, I guess if you put something out there that kind of threatens how things are done currently, then you're going to get, some hate from some people. I know this just from writing my articles, which are also, I get a lot of heat. I get a lot of very, very, very negative, angry comments. But I never feel bad about that. I always feel like, cool, I must be actually onto something, or else I'm just a dumbass.
Yeah. I actually do. I mean, I feel bad about it. But I mean, I agree. I think when something's working well, it is a good sign. It's a sign that people are listening, and I'm kind of almost like flattered that anyone is upset about design sprints because I remember when everybody was like, "What the hell are you talking about?" But I think that it's we'll get into another episode. Maybe that's a good teaser for a future episode of the Breakfast 17 podcast Secret Weapon podcast.
Yeah, I guess, the thing is we can't ask people to suggest names. We can change the name on the fly though, so we'll just pick something. Can we stick with breakfast? Just have the word breakfast in there.
I think as long as that's in there, I'm okay with any name.
Is it clearly sarcastic if we call it the Breakfast Innovation Club?
I don't think so. I think people will take the innovation part seriously because they probably won't listen to this whole podcast.
Yeah, okay.
And they're joking.
How about the Breakfast Dance Club?
I feel like club of something. I think if you put in something in between breakfast and club, you sort of diffuse the breakfast club part.
Okay, how about the... All right, we'll think about it. We'll talk about it. I mean, this is going to go online next week.
This is like why you should do a design sprint is two guys just like brainstorming and then like going with a decision that they came up with.
We could definitely do a lightning decision jam and have this solved.
Terrible. This is terrible. Yeah.
The funny thing is, actually, it's like we've been going back and forth about this name a little bit for the last 2 weeks, but absolutely 100% sure if we did a 45 minutes or 30-minute lightning decision jam exercise, we would have the name right now.
We would have it. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Fuck it. All right, Jake, thanks a lot for taking the call. Right. I think we can do this bi-weekly.
Oh, I think bi-daily.
Bi-daily, okay.
There should be a breakfast one and a dinner one.
A dinner. I mean, this episode is right now 1 hour and 10 minutes, so I don't know. I mean, it's actually not that long for a podcast. But it's a bit of an experiment. So guys and girls, if you're watching this and if you liked it or if you didn't like it or if you'd like just if you're on YouTube watching this and you somehow watched the whole thing or are skipping through, let us know what you think. Give us a like and a subscribe. You can also just listen to this on iTunes. I think you can review stuff on iTunes. Give us a review. Obviously, this is an early attempt at making a podcast, but I think it was actually pretty fun for me at least. You hated it.
Oh yeah, as long as we entertained ourselves, then I think we're good. Also, I feel like if someone watched it all the way until now and didn't like it, what's your deal?
What are you doing?
You should don't watch stuff all the way through.
No.
If you don't like it, stop.
No.
It's not our fault if you didn't like it. You should stop watching, listening, whatever.
Yeah. Also, one thing I should tell you about the AJ&Smart YouTube and our other sort of social channels is it's rare that we do an episode or do anything without me complaining about my hair. But actually,
I was just noticing it's looking pretty good.
I think it's actually pretty sweet today. Like it's like you can see these kind of streaks from the last 1 month vacation I did. Like you can.
Yeah, so you got some product in there.
Yeah, I actually don't have anything in there. Check it out. It's just totally. There's nothing in my hair.
That's just natural. It's getting worse the more you touch it.
I should stop touching it. I should stop touching my hair.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, Jake. Where can people find you online? Where should people go to give some love to Jake?
Yeah. I guess Twitter is good or jakeknapp.com. Sign up for I have so many newsletters. Sign up for a Sprint newsletter, a writing newsletter, whatever you want.
God.
You can go to jakeknapp.com.
Jakeknapp.com. And what are you on Twitter?
Jake K.
Oh,
Jakek.
I actually don't believe it. That's what it is. So I've known you for so long, and I've been following you since 2012, and I always read it as Jackik. I'm serious. I'm not joking. Oh my God. All right, guys. So with that,
what did you think that meant? What did you think that meant?
I honestly didn't even think about it. I just looked at it and I was like, Jackik. It's Jackik. What's wrong with that? So also, what we can assume as well is that somehow with all of this setup, which you guys can't see, but there's a lot of stuff around me right now. I've got a lot of backup. I shouldn't actually touch these things. I've got a lot of backup audio recording things. I've got a camera.
Just erase the podcast.
There's bound to be something that went wrong. There's bound to be some audio issue or something. So don't worry if you're listening to this and think we didn't notice it. We will have noticed it by the time you're hearing this. But hopefully it's listenable. We're going to be slowly upgrading the mics, but maybe also Jake's if it didn't work out well. We're going to be working on this.
Mine is attached with masking tape here, so it's really kind of in addition to the book stack, it is a real mess over here. It's a dog's breakfast over here.
Dog's breakfast podcast.
Dog's breakfast podcast. We might have just hit it. Dog's breakfast club. Maybe too far. Maybe one riff too far.
Dog's breakfast. I kind of like the name of that. All right, guys.
Yeah,
I think we're done here, Jake. Are we done?
I think we're done.
Oh yeah, follow me on Twitter. No, actually Instagram at @jicecream.
Oh, I read that as Jice Cream.
See? It's not so obvious. I mean, obviously you should have read it as @jicecream. Okay, I think some like cool jingle music is going to be playing now while we talk our way out. Thanks, Jake. Have a nice day. See you next week in San Francisco. Okay, everybody, that was the episode. Hope you enjoyed it. I know there's a bit of rambling, but we're going to get better at this. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe. If you're on YouTube, give it a subscribe, give it a like. If you're on your podcasting app and you haven't subscribed already, how did you even do that? I don't know how to do that in a podcasting app. Just listen to one thing without subscribing to it. But we're going to be making a couple of more episodes in this experiment. Do let us know what you think. Give us your opinions. Tell us what you want us to hear us talking about. What us wants us to hear us talking about. I'm really good at speaking. But yeah, that was episode 1. We're going to be shooting episode 2 next week in San Francisco, so there won't be this time delay. So that's it, everybody. Good home and good night.